All right, we're back. So I got my ball joints from Corbs, Oliver 77 ball joints, or 77, 88, Super 77, Super 88, 770, 880, and probably the small frame 4-digit axles, I would guess. But at least the early one. The only difference is the taper. These are actually slightly heavier ball joints. The taper is slightly bigger. They still fit. You can still get in there, get a flat washer, get a nut. Like, they physically do go into the spindle. It'd just be nice to get them to fit up all the way the same way the old ones did. So I don't really want to have to buy a ball joint reamer because they're freaking expensive. I'm hoping I got some feelers out to see if I can find one to borrow. But they will work as is right now, so if I have to put them together and change them a little bit later, it's not a big deal. Still waiting on my tap for the drag link and the nuts, or the jam nuts, and still waiting on my freaking bolts. Those aren't going to be here till Tuesday. So they have shipped, they're just not there. So as far as the rack goes, went yesterday or during that rain and got my lumber. So I've got all the lumber sitting up here on the trailer. I ordered my bolts I need to attach it to said frame. Those will be here. Those are picked, and I just got to go. They set them outside for me. I got to go pick them up either yet tonight or tomorrow morning. So with that being said, we're gonna probably start doing a little at least get some steel cut, hopefully start doing a little bit of welding. We just had yesterday that rain, it lasted probably a whole whopping 30 minutes, got a 1/4 inch out of it, which was really disappointing. And then here this afternoon, one randomly popped up out of nowhere that dropped 3/4 inch. Luckily, I mean, literally a mile down the road, I was coming home from work. I had to stop up here to do some measuring on this thing so I could order them bolts. Literally, there's a farm down here that's got a cornfield and a pasture. It was right on the fence between the corn and the pasture. It was raining on the pasture. It was not raining on the corn. So, and luckily everything, unless it started raining further south a little later, it looks like everything was from like a mile south of here heading north, and it was kind of a narrow band. But that dropped 3/4 inch, and it went from here all the way to my house and past. So everything of mine except for the north field should have got water on it. And then that north field all the way up that way, that should have got rain yesterday because we had a 1/4 inch, but up further that way they had like 7/8 So that field should have got a drink yesterday. So everything of mine should have got a shot of water. Should have. Fingers crossed. So anyhow, with all that being said, going to weld gussets in here, and once that's done, roll the thing over, because like that right there, they never welded it on the bottom for some reason. That one doesn't feel like it, but that one is. I don't know if they ran out of welding rod, what the heck they had going on. So gusset those, put my braces here, get a top rail across, replace this cross member back here. But now that I see they had one welded in there because there's welds, it broke out. Replace this one because it broke off, and it's broke off yay far off the pipe, so I'm not going to weld that back together because it'll be a weak spot. So we'll replace that one entirely. And do all that. It should be ready. Oh, and I need to put some angle brackets on it, which we will have to mock it, or get my 4x4s on the rack or on the gear, set the rack on that, mock it up, and figure out what I need for brackets to bolt this thing to a set of 4x4 rails. So, but it's calm today, so hopefully if I can get some steel cut, we can do a little bit of welding outside here today, because it'd be a heck of a lot easier to do it up here than it would down in the barn. So let me go see what we got for some flat stock to make some gussets, and we'll get to rolling. So I got 20 little triangles cut out. Like, this doesn't have to be anything super substantial. It's literally just to take some stress off of the way they butt welded this pipe together, because that's not exactly an ideal way to be welding pipe. At least the way they did it, it would have been a lot better. And the normal way is you moon cut or saddle cut the pipe. That way you got a nice firm fit, and then you can weld all the way around it instead of this whole crimping the end of the pipe and blah 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 blah. So this is literally just to take some of that twist that this thing's going to be experiencing, give it a little bit more, move some of the stress out from the weld joint. So this is probably not going to be very fun welding, because it's, well, for starters, galvanized. Although a lot of the galvanized has come off of it. But between the galvanizing and the fact that it's so dang dirty, I already ground some good spots off, but we shall see here. That stuff's nasty. And it is most likely the galvanizing burning off causing this. Well, I got it. The welder was not out of gas. It's just this stuff is just that nasty to weld on. It just, whatever's, I don't know if this was like, not knowing what kind of pipe this was, whatever. I don't know if it was like used pipe and it's got stuff into the, like oil and stuff in the pores or whatever. It's just really nasty welding on, but we're getting it. It's just not pretty. And it's not my shielding gas blowing away, because there's not a leaf moving, or this is like weirdly calm for this, for around here. So it's not that. Alright, probably done welding for the day, because it's raining right now. But I did get all my gussets welded in, and then I went cut another couple hunks of, this is 1.5 inch pipe off of the side racks that I cut up to make new cross members. It's heavier than what they had in there. That's 1 inch, so this is 1.5 inch, so we're upsizing in a heavier sidewall. But I'm going to set it up to where they're welded in correctly with saddle cuts. So this one obviously is already done. This was the experiment. So we got to do this one, and there's special tooling and stuff to actually do this, like in a production type of setting, like if you were doing it in a factory, but we're not, so we don't have none of that. So basically what we got is, for the first end, we can just stuff it in here, and I cut them long, that way we got, because your distance in between the ends of this, or the insides of the scallops, is going to be your distance between the two pipes that are on the frame. So I cut it long so we had room to work. So you just come in here and figure in your first scallop, which is going to be a shallow cut. And this is a 2-inch annular cutter to match the 2-inch radius on the pipe that's out there. Where'd it go? Right there. Make sure everything's nice and tight in the vise. You don't want to overfeed this because it is cutting on something round, so you just kind of put a little bit of pressure on it and let the cutter do its thing. I hate working with round material. There's just nothing fun about it at all. It's real easy to hurt tooling. Okay, now that side's done, and that's the easy side because it's the one that doesn't matter as far as the rotation of the pipe. And then you take, and I put this in the, and stick this in the bottom of the radius. It's kind of a hillbilly way of doing it, but it works for what I'm doing. And then you can put a level on there and rotate it, flipped around to the other side to get it standing straight up and down. That way your scallops line up. So do that on the other side, cut the scallop in that, and you've got a finished pipe. Alright, the rain quit, so I'm going to try to get these cross members welded in. I'd like to, I think I'm going to lose my daylight early because of cloud cover. I'd really like to be able to flip it up on its side and finish welding all this stuff in from the bottom, but we'll see how we end up. But this one's already fit in, and you can see how much I got to do a little adjusting as far as when I go to tack it in, but you can see how much better, like this is, you got all that surface area to weld to. You're not on one little pinch point. That's how this whole thing, if you would have done it right, that's how this whole thing really should have been welded together. But if you don't have the right tooling to do it, it's kind of a pain. So anyhow, where can we, everything's round, it's hard to find a spot. Alright, we got her flipped up so I can finish welding in all my gussets. I can finish welding in the new cross members. It looks like they didn't weld the bottoms on any of these. And they didn't weld that one. They welded that one. So they didn't weld the bottoms of a bunch of this stuff. So finish trying to weld some of that in as well while we're here. Try to get this done before I run out of daylight, which is happening quickly. Doing so good. Kind of hard doing this when it's so dark out. Alright, I got all of my stuff welded in. Both cross members are welded in and they're good and solid. All my gussets are welded top and bottom. They're still, I have to go through and finish cleaning up all the stuff that they didn't weld on the bottom. And then I'll have to, I just noticed it when I was finishing up. When they welded this tube in, there's a hole in it right there that looks like it was there when they put everything together. So I'm gonna have to make some sort of patch to tie all that, or tie that corner in a little better. So there's still a little bit of work to do with it upside, or on its side, upside down, whatever. But it is 9:30, so it's time to call her quits for the night. So, but had they welded everything together like this instead of the way they did it, it would have been a really nice solid rack. But they didn't, so like if they'd have done it that way, we wouldn't have had to worry about the gussets and stuff I put in, because there would have been a nice saddle and everything there, and it would have been good and solid. And by all rights, when they welded these to this, they should have cut a saddle in this so that it saddled down over this pipe, but they didn't. But it obviously worked for as long as it's been together, so everything I'm doing is just to stiffen it up a little bit and give me a little bit more peace of mind. So that way we don't break a rack in half fully loaded. So I'm gonna get this thing out of the way, get things cleaned up, call her a night, and with any luck at all, they're talking rain tomorrow morning, but I have some running I gotta do anyhow. So with any luck at all, we will be able to continue this at some point tomorrow without having to go down to the barn, because I really don't have a whole lot left. Finish up the welding I got to do here on the bottom, weld that crossbar across the top, fix a couple busted bars on the back rack, put my struts in, and then we'll have to figure out my mounting plates. Have to mock everything up on the gear and set it on the gear and figure out where I want to put my plates to mount this to the 4x4, and it'll be ready to deck. So weather permitting, probably going to come pretty close to having it finished up tomorrow. We shall see. Alright, back to welding. Looks like I got a few hours of decent weather. I had to do some errands this morning. Now it's supposed to rain this morning, so I figured, okay, I'll do everything I need to do in the morning. Well, now it's supposed to rain after lunch. So I wish I could have done everything after lunch, but half the place I had to go close afternoon on Saturdays. So is what it is. But actually, there was just a thunderstorm just went through south of the state line. It was booming up a heck of a storm. But anyhow, I'm contemplating if I do all the ones down here at the bottom and then flip it over, or if I just get on a ladder and do the rest of them. But anyway, I got everything cleaned up that I need to weld from this position anyhow. So yeah, get to welding. Where can we set you? Right here. That's not bad. We'll see how this stuff welds. It's being already assembled, and the way they did everything, it's hard to get in there and get a good clean surface. I was able to get a cup wheel in there, but just have to see what happens, I guess. Not great, not terrible. Certainly better than nothing at all. The only thing I can figure is there was alcohol involved in the original construction of this thing, because there's really no rhyme or reason as to what's welded where and why. It's like this cross member was not welded on the bottom over here, but it is up there. This cross member is welded down on the bottom down here, but it's not up there. This cross member wasn't welded on the bottom on either side. And then none of these struts, cross members, whatever you want to call them, were welded on the bottom, except for this one was welded on the bottom up there, but it was a crappy job, so I ground it out the best I could and hit it again. There's no rhyme or reason as to what they welded. Everything from on the top is welded, but there's no rhyme or reason on the bottom as to anything that was welded. And then like the fit up on like this guy here, this is going to take like 2 or 3 passes to fill. That one's not terrible, but this one is wowzers. So yeah, that's the only thing I can figure is alcohol. All the guys probably came over to the shop that weekend, and a 6-pack turned into a 30 brick. this stuff weld dirty. Help if I grab a welding helmet, huh? Alright, so the last thing I want to do while I got it upside down is band-aid this hole up. It's kind of rusty like a rust hole, but the way it's shaped, it's almost like that was there to begin with. And then it just rusted out from there, got rusty from there. But plan is I got this piece of sheet steel, and because I wanted something thin enough that I could hammer to the profile. So we're gonna weld that in there about like that. Lay a tack right here so that I could beat it around the pipe and then weld it in just to give this corner some support. This thing's gonna do plenty, and it ain't doing much. I mean, you only got this much lever and it's pretty heavy pipe, so it'd probably be fine just the way it is, but this is more of a peace of mind thing. So and now that that storm's blowing in, we're starting to get a breeze, so it's making this stuff a little bit more difficult. One of my buddies just texted me his radar saying we're supposed to get 4.5 inches out of this next round. We don't really need that much. Alright, she's flipped back over. I ended up plating this side top and bottom just for good measure. So it sure as heck ain't going nowhere now. As you can see by the concrete, had a little rain shower come through. It's spitting again, but until it gets to the point where I physically can't weld out here, we're just going to keep going for it. So next thing is gonna make my struts up, so we gotta get those cut. I got my struts made, or gussets, or whatever you want to consider these, just in time for the rain to show up, which I'm fine with this. It looks like it's going to keep raining exactly like this for about the next 5 hours, which this is a good rain. We need a nice, just slow, steady, gentle soaker like this. Don't need any flash storms and heavy rains. None of that soaks in. It just runs, although as dry as the ground is, it probably still soaked it up. Except 3/4 we got yesterday came in like half hour, 40 minutes maybe. So I mean, it wasn't super duper fast, but it wasn't slow neither. This is good. I think we had the hillsides and some of the light ground might have been hurt a little bit on that dry spell, but I think this gets us out of the woods. Because corn's been pollinating for about the last week and a half. So some of that early pollinated stuff in. But anyhow, obviously done welding, because ain't welding in the rain. Kicker of it is there's no wind, so if it wasn't for the water, you could just keep right on welding, but welding and water don't tend to mix. So I'm going to get this thing out of the way and put some stuff away and clean up some mess, and then just in the name of keeping progress moving, I might drag the gear back up here and stuff it in here, and we will swap that tire onto the new rim and tighten up that wheel bearing and get the hubs greased so that that part's done. And I guess I can measure and get my new cross tube cut yet today too, that way it's ready to go. Get that cut and mitered. So probably do that before I drag the gear up here, but let me get some stuff put away. All right, I'm not going to be able to cut that top pipe today because that center pipe and the cross tubes are all bowed in. And I want to straight push those back out, and that'll push the tops of the pipes back out. Or I should say I want to push it back in, and it'll push the tops of the pipes out. And I just tried doing it, just bumping it with the forklift, and the rack's not heavy enough. And all I do is slide the whole thing. So tomorrow I'll have to bring the 1600 down and push it up against the skid steer plate on the loader, so that it can't go anywhere, and then shove it back where it belongs. And then once I can get a good dimension, then we can cut the pipe and go through all that. So we're gonna go ahead and swap this rim, or swap this tire onto that brand new rim. It's not quite an exact match to the originals, but it's close enough. If I painted it yellow, you'd never know the difference. So get this thing jacked up, get this rim off, and we'll do a little bit of tire work. of the best tools I've ever bought. Hands down. Alright, I got the tire off, beads are cleaned up, all the air sucked out of the tube. So this is a brand spanking new, never seen a tire, 10 by 15 rim. This is a 9.5 tire, so when it goes on it's going to pooch out and squat down like because these are all 10-inch rims and they're all 9.5 tires, which is why the tread is so narrow and the sidewalls are all pooched out. When I put new tires on it, I'm going to put 11Ls on it like what belongs on 10-inch rims, but for now, in the sake of getting it field ready, we're going to throw this one back on. So because the tire's so narrow for the rim, it's going to make putting the tube on kind of fun. Go in the hole. There we go. All right, tires mounted up, looks good, matches the rest of them now. So, because in my experience, you got an oddball tire on a wagon gear, not so much on the back, more so the front, but if you got an oddball tire, it makes them pull funny, which in this case we didn't have an oddball tire, we had an oddball rim, which made the tire oddball compared to the rest of them. So before we put it back on, we have to take care of that little issue. So I'm guessing we pop this cap off, it's not going to be pretty in there. This thing's going to need new wheel bearings all the way around because they're all growly. My guess is from lack of grease. But again, for the sake of getting it in the field, because I'd like to be cutting hay by middle of next week, or this coming week, we're going to just tighten it up and cram her full of grease, and she'll run for the one wagon load I'm probably going to end up with. Because even having a wagon, I will never be able to pull this thing at Shelly's mom's, because that's just the hill, and as tight as that where you got to go down over by the tray. It's just, you're never going to pull a wagon safely in that field, so that's always going to get dropped on the ground. So I'm only ever going to need this thing for straw and the 2 other hay fields. So
Yep, she's pretty dry. I'm guessing that's probably factory grease. But I don't see any rust, so that's at least a promising sign, although there was definitely water in here. Yep, there's not a whole lot going on in there as far as lubrication is concerned. Oh yeah, that's good bearing yet. Oh yeah, yeah. Grease your shit, people. Yep, that's gonna make it through this cutting, and then we're gonna have to put new wheel bearings in this thing. Ooh, boy. That's bad. Holy shit. Grease. Apparently it's too expensive. Well, that's got all the chunk out of it, so I'll put a cotter pin back in it and we'll pump her full of grease, and it's only got to haul one load. That's all it's got to do. Then we can work on it between second and third cutting. Alright, tire and wheels back on. I managed to get some grease pumped in the hub, but grease gun kind of took a crap. Last time Dad put a tube in it, the guts kind of grenaded, which it's a 30-year-old plus. It's been around as long as I can remember, so it's at least 30 years old. So gonna have to get a new grease gun before I can finish, unless or I'll have to. I could go home and get mine and come back, but it's not worth it for today. So I'm gonna have to figure out a grease gun and grease all four. It didn't quiet down, but it did smooth up a little bit with some grease in it, but it definitely needs new bearings. So we're kind of in between rains right now. This thing turns so nice now. So since we're in between rains, there's more coming. I'm gonna go ahead and bring the 4x4s down here. We can get those cut to length and mocked up, and maybe possibly look at figuring out what we want to do as far as mounting the rack to the 4x4s. Well, I'm not even gonna have to do any cutting. They're pretty much perfect right at 12 foot, so it's getting kind of muggy out. I guess I can roll this thing back outside and we'll set the rack on there and do some figuring. Well, this is looking good. Set it up on them 4x4s. It gives you plenty of clearance underneath the frame now, and then it's a nice height for jumping on and off, and should put it at a nice height for the baler. And overall, really like this setup. And as far as attaching this to
the 4x4s, I was looking down in the barn, and we have some light, it's like 1/8 inch, I think. It's got to be 1/8 inch. 2.5 by 2.5 angle. I was hoping they had this frame wide enough that it was tight enough in the pocket so that I could just run flat stock down. But that's not going to work because it's too loosey-goosey. And I want the 4x4s to be fairly snug against the pockets. But I can use that 2.5 by 2.5 angle, and on one of the legs just punch a bolt hole in it and put 3, one at the back or front pocket, one at the back pocket, one in the center, just to hold the 4x4 up, and run bolts through to hook the rack to the 4x4s. And then on one of the front corners, I'm gonna have to put a new hole a little higher up in either one of these stakes, but pockets, whatever, but then just run a bolt through here, through the 4x4, and into the angle. So, because when I do it, I'll probably put the front and the back ones on the inside. That way we don't interfere, and I have something so I can bolt all the way through. That way this is physically attached to the 4x4s, and then also it's physically attached at least in one point to the frame, because you bolt one corner, that way the other ones can float, and then chain the back corner or whatever. But at least on a hay rack, you always do the front corner, because I've seen people where they only do the back corner and then either forget to chain or use too light of a chain on the front, and then they are stacking the back of the wagon and they go up a hill, and then the entire rack goes and next thing you know, it turns into a dump truck. So we don't want to do that, so you always bolt one of the front corners. So anyway, if I did it that way, I can bolt, and this will physically be attached to the gear, and it'll physically be attached to the 4x4s, and everything will be good and snug and should work out all right. And the nice thing is, using 4x4s, it also keeps it low enough that I can use this, or their original stops. They had one in this corner and one on that corner. They still hit the stake pockets, so you've still got that fore and aft mechanically too. So I think that's what we're going to do, is we're going to use that angle. 3.5, that ought to be plenty. So I think that's our plan. I don't know if I want to go 3 or if I want to go 4. I think I want to go 3, because literally the ones in the center are only going to be holding the 4x4s up from sagging. The important parts are going to be where it's sitting on the gear. And on the 3 corners that aren't bolted, I'll put them together so that I'll use some galvanized carrot. You got to use galvanized because treated lumber, but I'll put them together backwards so that the head of the carriage bolt is outboard. That way it'll still slide down inside the pocket and not catch. So I think we have our plan. So I'm gonna set this back off and put everything away, and might go down and try to dig a hunk of that angle iron out and cut me some pieces off, and we get the holes drilled real quick and at least get those ready to go for tomorrow. I'm I would start welding again, but I know sure as shit I get everything drug out and it's gonna start raining again, because it's coming. It's still on radar. So we'll get these brackets made and probably call her a day. there's my angle bracket. Drilled for clearance for a 5/8 bolt, so I'll just have to get some bolts. More bolts. Wish my stuff had showed up to put the gear back together, but the tap showed up wrong. The one that I ordered is not the one they sent, so I had to send that back. Hopefully they're gonna send me the right one this time. Still waiting on my nuts. My jam nuts, those were supposed to be here yesterday and they didn't show up. The bolts for the tongue and the kingpin ain't gonna be here till Tuesday. You get real tired waiting on parts real fast, especially stuff that should be simple. But anyhow, since there's still more rain coming, it should be starting here by the radar anytime again. We're gonna go ahead and call it a day because I'm pretty much to the point where I can't do anything else once it's outside. So it's looking promising to hopefully get finished up, at least on the rack. I obviously won't be able to finish the gear, but at least get the rack finished up and hopefully deck tomorrow. And then while I'm waiting on parts, hopefully Monday, get the mower hooked up and get the work done to it that I need to do to it. So anyhow, I guess that's it for this one. We'll catch you guys on the next one.